There's nothing wrong with eating on the internet, okay? I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what anybody told you. It's not true. There's nothing wrong with eating on the internet. That's my stance. All right, we're good. Couple of beef tacos. Got some cheese and beans, some rice over here. We're fucking eating nice right now. We're eating the good shit right now. When there's a little background music, it'll be perfect. What do we listen to today? Oh, yeah.
And I asked, why not? And I replied, I don't know. So he asked the simple black bird, who is happy as can be. Well, he laughed insane and quit Khalil Gibran. And I cried for all the others till the day was nearly through. For I realized that God's a young man. cheeks aflame. He said, you'll never go down to the gods again. He struck the ground, the cabin appeared, and I smelled the burning pit of fear. We crashed 1,000 yards below. I said, do it again, do it again. His nebulous body swayed above, his tongue swollen with devil's love. A snake and high, a venom high. I said, do it again, do it again. Breathe, breathe, breathe deeply. And I was seething, breathing deeply. Spitting century horn and tail. Waiting for you.
When we first was hired for by the WWE, the promises that were made to us were, we were going to, get a fair shot at everybody. Everybody was, even, square. There was no promises, no guarantees. This was the very first talk when Shane McMahon showed up unannounced at Panama City. We, as the top talent, I'm with Sting, Goldberg, Nash, and we wheel up and see that WWF trucks are there. And we're like, oh my gosh, what the hell's going on here, So everybody scatters and goes to their people of what they know. Well, within 5 minutes before we could really find out what was going on, Shane McMahon, they go, hey, there's a meeting in the room, so-and-so, Shane McMahon's going to talk. So we actually go in this meeting, I remember I was standing directly beside Lex Luger, I never forget it. Goldberg was right here, I never forget it. And we're like literally having no idea what's coming out except we know it's all bad. And Shane takes about 3 minutes and he says, I just want to let you guys know we own the company. We're going to hire some guys, we're going to fire some guys. We're going to hire some referees, we're going to fire some referees. And that's it. And everybody kind of give a half applause, half not applause. And so there wasn't any, from the very first meeting, nothing. So the first show came out, and me and Lex were the tag team champs, and we went on the show. So pretty much, if you're not on the very first show, you're not getting hired.
Yeah.
So we're like, oh my God, we're not even on the show, So I go to the truck, get ready to leave. Here comes Lex running out. He goes, we're on the show. So if you ever watched the very first show when Shane McMahon took the show over, and they were, Vince was via satellite in Cleveland, and we were in Panama City, me and Lex do some kind of little interview, and it was live. We did some kind of interview thing. From there, we're depressed, don't know, had no ideas, no nothing. No promises, no guarantees, no nothing. My contract's up in 2 months. So I'm in a real bad position. Luger just signed for I think 1.5 for 3 years. So no matter what, we knew Vince taking it over, he's got to pay the contract.
Yeah.
So the people that are sued to their contracts, they're, hey, so what? People like me were going, oh no, what are we going to do? So it came down to the time to, let's talk. So I was making, I think, $750 at the time, and for a 3-year deal, rented cars, hotels, first class ticketing, the whole 9 yards, and which is a ton of money. And he came in. He had courted me about 6 months previous to this, and met me. Flew me in, whole 9 yards, me and my wife.
This is Vince?
Vince.
Okay.
Vince McMahon flew me in, me and my wife, limousine, whole 9 yards into Newark. Stanford, am I saying that right?
Yeah, Stanford,
Connecticut. Flew me in the whole thing. And this is before I think even he knew he was buying the company. Fast forward, buys the company. I become what's your name again? Instead of, I said, wait a minute, we just met. Don't you remember us meeting and talking? And that was all gone then, because now he owns the company. I got no stroke, I got no leverage. They offer me, I think, 175. And I said, Vince, I'll have to sell everything. It's a lot of money, and thank you. I said, but I'll have to sell everything in the world. I sell my house, I have to sell my motorcycle, my cars. I said, can you not do a little better than that? I mean, keep in mind, no leverage. I think we ended up settling at 225 or 250, with some incentives,
Right.
kind of thing. And still had to go home, and I had a $5,000 house payment, big mansion and all that stuff. Long story short, sold the motorcycle, did things I had to do to get my living back right, and under the right thing. And from that point, the promise was fair shake at everything. Everybody's going to be nice to everybody. There was 12 guys hired, and 9 of them, honestly, wasn't, I don't think, and I've got heat from this before, and I'll get heat again, and I could care less, because I tell the truth. 9 of them, I don't think, were stars, like your Sean Stasiaks, your Sean O'Hara's, your Mark Jendraks, your Hugh Morris's. He was a star, but really, star power, guys. I don't know, whatever you think is a star or not. But the 3 main guys that WWF called their main guys that they hired were Dallas Page, Marcus Bagwell, and Booker T. And that was the main guys. The other guys were like the kid I hadn't gotten a fight with, which was Hurricane. He wasn't considered he was one of the 12, but he wasn't even considered as one of the stars at that stage, we were told. So we go to school, they made us go to school, and that was like a setup for somebody to bitch about it.
Right.
Knowing I was going to bitch about it, and I didn't. I went to school every day and learned the 20-foot ring instead of 18-foot ring, and okay, I get it, I'm playing along. And so we found out pretty quick that it wasn't going to be straight up. It was, Stone Cold Steve Austin and me, stunning Steve Austin and Marcus Bagwell go back to WCW days, and I could tell we wasn't cool. I was competition. I walked in like a friend, and all of a sudden I'm competition. And Steve was cool to me, but I could just still feel and understood this was a different game. We were now in competition full, and everybody that was hired was competition for everybody else. So I understood their position fully, but it was to the max. Like heat, to the max. So what I did to get the heat off me, I came up with a brilliant idea, I thought. I said, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go to Vince and say, look, let's get past all this money stuff. Let's do this. To get to the figure out, back to the 250, I said, let's just, you ain't gotta pay me for the last 2 months. And that would have been about like 60 grand for me, 60, 80 grand for 2 months. And he said, I said, I won't sit at home, I'll come to work right away. And my agent was Brad Small at the time. He went, Mark, great idea. So that got the heat off me, we thought. I saved Vince $80,000. I come aboard with the contract he wanted. Because 225, when you're 31 and you're Buff Bagwell, you're still going to be a millionaire because I'm such a baby still. Yep. I'm in the prime of all of it. So let's suck hind tit for 250 over here, a ton of money still, knowing you're going to be in the $500,000 range in a few years and be one of their main players. You're in shape, you're healthy, you feel good. Let's get over as a team, as friends. So I did so and was fired in 2 weeks.
Nice. Hardcore right there. Let's see what else we got.
Was there legit emotion in the locker room? Or was this for television?
It was for television. I mean, I think that, I mean, everybody knew it was coming.
Did Ric Flair cry all night?
I mean, I think he was upset. I mean, it was one of those things that, you know, when you talk about when Tide changed, like losing Arn, like that hurt. Like people don't realize how good Arn was on so many levels. Arn, you know, I remember when Arn was like the TV champion, and fucking he would like go through with guys, you know, and he had that spot for you know maybe a year on WCW. That was old center stage man, a big 953, 950, you know, and Arn would fucking barely hold on to that fucking TV champion, but he'd go through, and he could make everybody look good, and had a great mind. I for a while during one of my hiatuses between gimmicks, they put me on the road with Arn, and I remember just fucking learning so much just in the ring with Arn on a daily basis. You know, just the little things, like how to work like a guy and keep him cornered off into your corner in a tag match, and you know how to do fucking the false tag the right way. And I mean, he was just he was brilliant on the little nuances that made something, you know, something good become great. I think maybe the first parody in wrestling history.
Hold on, did this precede the Nacho Man and all that stuff, or where did that all fall in? Was this after that, before that?
No, I mean the one that they actually did.
Well, they filmed the.
They used but they didn't use. They used actors.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the first one where the boys were the participants.
You obviously remember it. I don't have to go through the details. How long did it take you to get into the Arn getup?
I watched the Arn gimmick. Andre did that. Maybe an hour and a half.
Who comes up with the idea for this?
I do.
Did the Horsemen really not know this was going to happen?
No, they knew.
Oh, they did.
They all thought it was funny until they called home that night and their wife said, "You look like a bunch of boobs." And Arn's wife said, he made you look like a stupid fucking drunk." It was the retributional heat from the wives that caused the heat.
Fucking Lisa Smith should have been on that.
Lisa Wolf.
Well, whoever the fuck.
She should have got a hold of Arn's wife and had her talk to my wife, and they could have had fucking thrown like a mixer or something.
At the event, everybody's enjoying it. Everybody's laughing.
Yeah. I walked right by and looked at those guys, and I swear to God, I asked Arn for his cooler. That's Arn Anderson's cooler in my fucking hand that I knew he had. It's like it's life imitating art, art imitating life, imitating art imitating life. It's just the beauty. It's.
Is it the following day that somebody says
no,
a
it's
negative
that
word?
Fucking night.
Oh, that night even.
I'm walking. We're in Pensacola, staying at this nice hotel, and Arn walks up to me, fucking with like 5 beers in his hands. Looks up at me, he says, "Why'd you do that?" I just looked down at his fucking hands, pressed the fucking button, and got on the elevator. Like, are you fucking shitting me? Like, you guys, like, it would have been like if they would have done a fucking parody on the Click with Somas in '94.
Right.
And we would have
stood there with the pill bottle and asked why they did
and we
that.
would have said foul. You know, it's like you guys fucking drank you fucking used to use TV and tell them what Marriott you were so the rats would show up.
Is Arn the most vocal? Or who else is...
Change the pay-per-view.
Who else comes up to you or says something to you?
Arn, nobody fucking went over the edge with it. You know, it was just like... It's just like the fucking curtain call. Vince said it was fine until all the boys went, "Oh, okay, fame." And then Hunter got his head chopped off. You know, it's always a good idea until fucking everybody bitches like a bunch of fucking cunts. Then Lisa Wolf gets involved, and next thing you know, you got a fucking mixer.
Kevin Nash, you don't get to say cunt on my stream, you fucking cunt. Let's see, what else we got? Recommended.
And don't say it came from me.
Yeah, don't you think?
That seems to be more apropos. Like, Pat, come up with this idea. It's from me, but don't tell them it's from me. Because if Pat goes and says, "Hey, Brett, Vince has this idea," I mean, Brett, in the back of his mind or even in the wildest dreams would never expect that. But Brett's also, as old school as it gets, and might be aware of that if it wasn't just kind of coincidentally thought from Pat. You know.
Yeah, if it just was Pat just saying, like, how about we do this? It's not the worst idea. Sean gets him in a sharpshooter, he makes the ropes, or he reverses. And I guess it was reversed because if you watch the tape, you can see Brett reversing out of it when the match ends.
Well, and that's something that went through in the late 90s, early 2000s, big time. You can watch all of the big matches from that time frame, and everybody was doing everybody else's finish.
Right.
I mean, to the point where Vince just went, stop, not anymore.
Yeah.
Because everybody, I think I even won the Undisputed Championship with a stunner or a rock bottom on Raw. You know what I mean? Like, that's just how things went back in those days. So, as far as the match goes itself, what's we know all this stuff, but just to continue to tell the story, Brett goes in the ring with no idea. Sean goes in the ring. Now, Hebner, obviously Earl Hebner knows about it, the referee.
I've heard different versions. Earl's story always was that he's about to go through the curtain, and they told Dave, his twin brother.
Yeah.
And it's just like, Earl, this is what's going to happen, and as soon as you make that call, you run to the back, and your bags are packed, and you get in the car with Dave, and you're gone. So none of the boys see you, or they don't, it happens so quick, right? Which is what he did, which is funny because there was a guy who called me, the minute the show goes off the air. It's a fan, actually. A historian who called me and just goes, "Oh my God, they did the Gorgeous George Don Eagle finish," and I have no idea what he's talking about, and I don't even realize at this point that it was a double cross. I just thought, well, that's the weird way to get out of. I knew, that's the weird way to change the title, isn't it? And I'm just thinking, I didn't realize it was like a double cross until about 10 minutes later when Doug Furnace called me up, and he's just absolutely furious.
Oh wow.
Yeah, just furious, and he's just going, you won't believe what happened, and I actually said, because of the call I had just gotten, I think I know what happened. I think it was, no, you don't know what happened, you don't, and he's going and he's just furious because, remember, Brett's son is there.
Right.
And he goes, Brett's son is crying right in front of me, and he was just so livid that they double, and he was, I don't know how close he was with Brett, but he's, all the guys respected Brett anyway. So he was just like, what a horrible thing to do, and blah 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 blah. And it was like that all night. But he was like the first one, and and that's when, like, by the end of the night, there's that talk of like everybody boycotting television the next day, which almost nobody did. I think Mick Foley was the one. He actually did. Mick Foley did refuse to go to television over that, and sat out for a couple of weeks or maybe a week until he realized that, like, everybody else is going on with their life. What's my protest thing at this point?
It's interesting because so when I was watching, let me ask you, was this the same show that Foley and Undertaker had Hell in the Cell?
No, that was Pittsburgh.
Okay, so I was watching that one though, and I remember saying, "Oh, that was kind of a flat finish," and not really understanding what went on, and then to see kind of Brett and the destruction afterwards, and thinking like, that's weird. I mean, what did you think when you saw it, when you watched it?
I just thought that it was, because it was weird because I kind of knew it was going on, but I kind of didn't, in the weird sense of, I thought for sure that Brett was going to lose because it was the only thing that made sense to me, right? He starts with WCW December 1st. This pay-per-view is in November. It's the only finish that I would think of until I kind of knew that there was weird stuff going on, but I didn't know about the creative control. I didn't know about the back and forth, but I did get someone who told me, in the last day or two, that Brett is not losing it in Montreal, but he's going to lose it after Montreal. So that's kind of what I was told. I think it was the day before. So I'm kind of watching, going, okay, they're going to do some weird finish, and he's going to lose it later, and then he loses it, and I'm going, oh, you know, they've changed their mind or whatever. But
Yeah.
When I'm watching it, it's just like, that's a weird ending that, you know, under a weird circumstance, and I guess that they all got what they wanted, not realizing it was a double cross until, you know, like I said, I didn't think it was a double cross until a guy called me up, like, you know, the show's right
Sure.
off the air, my phone's ringing, it's one of my best friends, and he's telling me about the Gorgeous George Don Eagle match, and he said, go back and watch that referee when he makes the call and he's gone. And he goes, that's what happened in Gorgeous George and Don Eagle, which was a similar double cross for a world title in Chicago, where Don Eagle got double crossed and the referee makes the count, and it was 3 count, and he sprints to the back. And he goes, that's how I knew, you know, that's how I knew. And I go, oh, okay. Maybe it was a double cross. And then Furnace called, and that was when it was like, oh, very clear it was double cross. Or to me.
So talk about the fallout over the next couple of days. I mean, you mentioned the boycott of TV, and obviously, you know, Foley was the one that didn't show up. But then, you know, that was when the Hart Foundation was at its peak with Davey Boy and Owen and Neidhart, and then kind of the whole falling out where Vince came in Brett came in the dressing room afterwards, and he punches Vince. I mean, how much do you know about all that sort of stuff?
Yeah. Okay. So afterwards, Vince locks himself in his room, in his office, while this is going on. And Undertaker's pounding on the door.
Really?
Yeah, and pounding. What's going on? What's going on? And so Vince finally, you know, tells him whatever he tells him. I don't know. You'd have to ask Undertaker what
Sure.
it was. But that happened. So Vince decides to go to the dressing room, and Brett's there, Davey's there, Neidhart's there. I know Rick Rude's there. There's probably a couple of others. And Brett's in the shower, and he's fuming, of course. You can remember, he's in the aftermath. He's, you know, waving like the letters, the initials WCW in the air in front of the fans, and he's breaking monitors, and he's throwing stuff around. And Owen and Neidhart and Davey are trying to calm him down, and they're all mad because they were supposed to do a run in there. You know, the finish was, you know, Hunter and China come in for the DQ, and then Owen and Davey Boy and those guys chase him out.
Oh,
right?
okay. So that was so Brett was told it's going to be a DQ finish.
Right.
Gotcha.
And the only thing they were debating was it was Hunter and Hunter was going to run in and China was going to run in, and Vince explains the whole thing to him, and then, you know, Owen and Davey and Neidhart run in, and then that's
Gotcha.
how it ends. And I remember the discussion was, Brett, you have your choice on this. Do you want to punch China or not? It'll get a big pop, but I don't know if you want to do it. And he just goes, nah, I think I'll do it.
Yeah.
So that was the one point of discussion. So of course none of this is going down, and they, you know, so they're, you know, they're all, you know, whatever. They're probably not happy either, and Brett's just fit to be tied. So anyway, back in the dressing room, Brett's in the shower and says something like, you know, if I come out of the shower, you better not be here. I'm going to deck you, or something like that. This Neidhart told me this story once, and I mean Brett's told me it in detail actually many times, but Neidhart's version, since it wasn't Brett and it wasn't Vince, not that, you know, whatever.
Sure.
You know, it's a third party. I remember I had him on the. He just goes. Brett goes, if he said like almost a joke. Goes, if you come out, if when I get out of the shower you're not here, I'm going to deck you. And then I go, well, so what happened? He goes, you got out of the shower. Vince was there, and he decked him. You know,
Classic Neidhart too, right?
yeah. He did it in a really funny way.
Yeah.
So Brett knocks him out. You know, and it's funny because if you see the Wrestling with Shadows, you can see that they're in the dressing room with Brett and Sean, where Sean is like, Sean's in there at some point. You know, I had
Pleading,
nothing to do with this. God is my witness. I had nothing to do with it. Sean's in tears. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's filmed, and then Owen tells the cameramen they got to leave when Vince goes in. So if like Owen doesn't tell them to leave and they're actually in there, maybe they would have had the footage and everybody for sure would know it was a work because they would have seen it.
Right.
Because if you see the punch, then it has to be a work, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, but even though when people didn't see the punch and you know and they see Vince stumbling out and everything, they think, for sure it's a work because whatever. So I mean that whole thing. It's like when I heard that, it was like. It was almost hard because I'd heard like later that night. I heard this. So this is about an hour or two later. I get a call from someone. Did you hear that Brett knocked out Vince? And now what? Now I'm thinking it's a work again.
Yeah.
You know. And then you know when I talked to Brett and Brett's going in the whole thing and you know going into the whole detail of everything. It's like Brett was so emphatic and so believable. And I just remember you know like the whole thing where you know I go this is what they're saying, and Brett just goes this is the story, and he goes, and I always remember this. He goes. Everything I just told you, I will be able to prove to you in due time, which, in fact, in due time, between the legal letters and the conversations that Paul J. had taped, pretty much, you know, he did prove everything that he said was 100% accurate.
Dave, did you ever think on Starrcade 97, Sting and Hogan, that it would all be over for World Championship Wrestling in just 3 years?
Impossible. Impossible. I even remember in '98 when you started hearing the rumors, and they were still doing great business in '98, even though they started losing. And I remember like people talking about, a little bit. I mean, really, the first I would say where I really heard people everybody was down in the company in '98 constantly. But the one, that fateful night when Kevin Nash beat Bill Goldberg, and the conversation with Bobby Heenan and Mike Tenay and Tony Schiavone, and that was the first I ever heard of people like in the company going like, you know what, but even then it was like, oh, look at, I mean, the business was still great. Not even good, it was great. Now, granted, they were making mistakes left and right. And I knew that they were going to go down, but the idea of going out of business, I thought, look how bad they were in the early 90s. Look how few people went to the matches. Look at what the TV ratings were. If they survived that, they'll survive anything. But the difference is in that period that they had a payroll that was, they lost money, but this was a different level of payroll. I mean, this one, like they needed to, the other one, maybe they needed to make $30 million a year, and if they made $25 million, they were down $5, whatever. Now you're talking about having to make, was it $185 million just to break even? It's different level. And when you collapsed and when people stopped going to the shows, which was really one of their big revenue streams, was people going to the shows and people buying the pay-per-views. And when people stopped buying the show, going to the shows and buying the pay-per-views, you ended up losing a lot of money in a short period of time. I mean, nobody. I'm trying to think. There has never been a wrestling company that has ever lost the kind of money that WCW did in 2000. Ever. Are you kidding? $2 million in a year? Nobody ever did that. I mean, it used to freak people out when WCW, like when we talked about, when WCW would lose $6 million in a year.
Yep.
You know, everybody was, oh my God, this is what a pit, blah 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 blah. Now you're multiplying it by 10. They were losing $5 million every month, and plus, I mean, it was crazy.
Now, the night of Starrcade, we're talking December 2000. Of course, WCW folds up the tent in late March 2001. If you can place yourself, you know, at Starrcade 2000 and the very end of that year, how imminent was the collapse? I mean, do you remember 2001 even taking on a life of its own in terms of how precipitous the collapse was, or did it feel like we only have a few months left?
I didn't think it was going to die so quick because it was just a question of, you know, at that point, it was pretty much established in my mind that Eric Bischoff and his guys were buying this thing. And I was talking to Eric a decent amount at that point, too. They were going to buy. I didn't know that they would make it or not. And I thought that it was going to be very, very difficult because, you know, you had this company that was losing so much money. So I thought that what was going to happen is they were going to sell the company. Eric was going to shut it down, so to speak, and then do a brand, or, you know, a reopening. I mean, he and I talked about it constantly, how it was going to be. You know, they did the thing where they almost, you know, his mentality was almost tank it, like take everybody off. Goldberg, Sting, I don't remember who else, DDP maybe. There were a bunch of guys where they had all these stipulations where they were all going to be gone. So then we would start the new company and bring them all back, which at the beginning would have been okay. You know, there would be interest in that. And then from there, it's a question of, you know, getting things over and everything. But Eric, I mean, I talked enough with him where I felt, and maybe, and this is what I felt at the time. I'm not so sure I was right at all, and we'll never know. But I thought that Eric had really learned a lot and become very open-minded because, you know, obviously there really was, he had the failure in 98, and then they brought him back with Russo, and then that was a complete disaster. And he had gone with, you know, I think that he finally realized, you know, the big undoing was as long as I got Hulk Hogan, I'm always going to win at the end, and we're always going to make money. And I think that there was the realization that nothing lasts forever, and Hogan's not the key anymore. And, you know, he was talking about building around young guys and slow, you know, and it would take a while. But I think that he was you know, I thought that he may have been able to do it. And, you know, again, the thing that So I thought that, you know, as far as like the idea that the company would fold, not quickly. And the other part is that the people who bought it, I wasn't so sure that their idea wasn't to like prop it up and then sell it to somebody else at a higher price, and it would be like to a, you know, maybe, you know, a big conglomerate like a TBS. Mm-hmm. And at that point, if the company was just, you know, not losing as much money, you know, it'd go on and it'd be TV product and you know, you get some hot angles and you get the house shows going because God knows, as low as it was in the 90s, look at how quickly, you know, it took what from they were absolutely terrible through, I guess, 92, 93, and then Hogan comes in 94, and things start going up a little bit, and then it was really, 96 was when I think you really started having that you know, 95 wasn't a good year. But 96 was getting to be a good year. You know, they had all kinds of business turnaround. So, but the thing is, you went from the bottom, and this was never from, you know, I mean, we'd already been through that. So it's like, you always go like, and Vince had too. Vince went from his bottom and became hotter than he ever was. So my thought was you can always, as long as you're alive and you have TV, you can always turn it around by creating new stars because we'd seen both those companies do it. So I never thought that like, it was